Hello, my name is Richard Moraes. I'm a novelist and I've written a novel called The Man with No Borders. My alma mater, Sarah Lawrence College, has asked me to read the book because on April 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, they are going to conduct a book discussion online and we'd love you to come and join us. So I'm going to read a few sections of the book to kind of give you a taste. Hopefully it will inspire you to read, to get the book and read it and participate with us during this time of the pandemic online in a book discussion. My novel, The Man with No Borders, is about a Spanish private banker, and he is reaching the end of his life, and he is diagnosed with cancer, and it's curtain time. He has an American wife, and they live in Switzerland. They live in a chalet in central Switzerland in a village called Eggery, and they have an apartment in Zurich where their private bank is. They have 3 sons, and they are estranged. And the aristocratic Spanish banker, the narrator, Jose Maria Alvarez, has to come to terms with a lot of secrets that he's been suppressing all his life. And as the cancer goes into his brain and sort of tears up his brain, these secrets that he's been suppressing for all his life start coming up, and he has to confront them and deal with them before he can die. So the first scene I'm going to read is actually the prologue of the book, and it'll give you a taste of what the book is about. My mind drifts back to those days when I was young and full of vigor and just starting my career as a private banker. It is the nature of old age, I am discovering, to remember the entire panorama of the past, everything from those difficult memories we spend a lifetime trying to suppress, to those inconsequential moments that seemed so trivial at the time, but now, with hindsight, take on added meaning and weight. In particular, I remember a day from the summer of the late 1960s, shortly after Lisa and I had moved to Zurich so I could learn my trade at Swiss Federal Credit Bank, the universal bank with headquarters on the Bahnhofstrasse. An elderly Swedish couple came to the bank in late afternoon to make changes to their will and estate. They were valued and respected clients of the bank, so my supervisor, Herr Albitz, ushered them into this remarkably spry and distinguished-looking couple into the grand conference room overlooking Paradeplatz and ordered them coffee and sugar biscuits. I was his assistant at the time and came shuffling into the conference room with the accordion of documents we had prepared for their visit. The couple sat opposite, white-haired and leather-skinned, looking like tanned beef hides after a decade living under the Riviera sun. They lived in a harborside penthouse in Monaco for most of the year to avoid confiscatory Scandinavian taxes, and had come to Zurich for one purpose that day: to cut their children out of their will. I pushed forward the last document, the amended trust. Please sign here and here. The elderly couple signed. It is over, the man said. The finality of signing touched something inside of them, and their emotions spilled out from their normally carefully enforced Swedish borders, as if we could somehow absolve them of their decision. Their daughter was a heroin addict, they told us, and had gone missing with her baby somewhere in India. Their son lived in Tangier. He was fond of entertaining rough sailors and was constantly getting robbed and asking his parents for more money. The couple could barely spit out the words. They were so full of disgust. They seemed to both loathe their children, who, they said, did nothing but break their hearts and disappoint them, while at the same time they were racked with guilt for washing their hands of their own flesh and blood. Yes, it's over and good riddance, the wife said. Now I can finally sleep If Josephina overdoses now, at least it won't be our money in her veins. When the couple stood again, they were old and stooped, as if their robust Riviera life had been stripped away by this act of family betrayal. I was shocked by their transformation and unsettled by the entire meeting. I suspect I conveyed a certain amount of cold contempt. Herr Albius, without saying anything specific, managed in contrast to convey great empathy, and he thanked the Swedes for their visit and wished them a safe journey back to Monaco as we escorted them to the elevators. Herr Albius and I turned heel when the elevator doors shut and began to walk down the bank's long corridors to our offices. Your performance with the client today was not what I was hoping for. My supervisor was blue-eyed and silver-haired and said little, but when he spoke, his comments carried weight. I glanced nervously in his direction. In what way? You must think more like a priest in a confessional and less like a banker on the Bahnhofstrasse. I've never thought about our work that way. You will hear lots of stories from the clients. Some of them will be unpleasant, some even distasteful. Reserve judgment. Families and their issues are complicated. Remember, you are not really in the business of managing money. You are in the business of keeping family secrets. I absorbed his comments as we turned down the next hall, the echo of our footsteps reverberating through the corridor. When I finally spoke, I did so with far more conviction and vehemence than I intended. I can keep family secrets. So that's the prologue of the book. I mentioned to you that he has cancer and the tumors are pressing on his brain. And as this happens, he starts hallucinating. And there's two things that he starts actually hallucinating, and also these memories that he's suppressed, which he sort of mentioned in the beginning, start bubbling up from his unconscious. The last scene I am going to read is again in the present day. Jose Maria, our narrator, is very close to death, and when his sons come to visit, his three estranged sons, and the family decides to take an outing, despite how ill the father is, to the other side of Lake Erie where they live, to a restaurant at a hotel to have a lunch. So this is, there's quite a few characters. So first of all, Lisa is the American wife, Jose Maria's American wife. They have three sons. The oldest is Sam, the middle one is John, and the youngest is Rob. They had Big Bertha, who is a hospice nurse, in tow, and they have their dog Alfredo. Also, I mentioned to you that Jose Maria starts hallucinating in the final stages of his death. And so he is going to, in the scene, there are two figures that are going to emerge in hallucinatory form, and that is his younger brother, Juan, and also a figure from his unconscious that comes out, and that's the Frog Queen. So it sounds crazy. It is a little bit, but bear with me, please. The morning fills with the logistics of our family outing. It is decided by Sam that we should take two cars. I am laid flat out in the folded down posterior of the Volvo station wagon. I cradle my drip by my side, Alfredo on the flatbed beside me, his ginger-fringed head resting between his great paws. John and Rob, after packing me into the car, looked anxiously down at me. Are you okay, Dad? Si, hijos. So is Alfredo. We are ready. John and Rob climb into the front seats and we pull out of the driveway. Sam follows in the BMW and with Lisa and Sister Bertha. Our caravan sets off around the lake until I finally sense we are pulling into the village of Moorgarten, which with its boat pier and restored 15th century church tower. Sam is called ahead, and the Hotel Seyfeld's new manager, a young man from Canton Vaud, is waiting for us as we pull into the crescent driveway at the family-owned inn. I notice with sadness the cream in white Jugendstil villa with 25 rooms has, since my last visit, had an ugly modernist glass and steel extension attached to its face like an ugly wart. "Bienvenue, Monsieur Alvarez," the manager says. He is smiling and bobbing his head like a car ornament. John and Rob come around and lift me from the back of the seat. I emerge from the Volvo with trembling effort, but I am here. "Merci, Monsieur le Directeur," I pant. "Vous êtes très gentil." The young man kisses Lisa's hand, a European affectation that has always made her skin crawl, and then invites us to enter the hotel. Behind us, Sam and Rob are chatting about their families back home, while John, stretching out his long torso and hamstrings, is leaning against the hood of the car. The manager makes a discreet gesture, and the Seyfeld's bellman, a Tunisian by the look of him, emerges from the shadows pushing a wheelchair. He bends forward, helps me get settled in the chair, and then turns me around and wheels me up the ramp laid down for my arrival. The family follows, and together we move through the sliding glass doors and across the hotel's lobby, like a close-knit military reconnaissance mission. Alfredo's toenails clicking on the marble floor. I lead the family. Sam is next. Rob, off to the side, holds the dog's lead tight. Lisa picks up her pace so she can walk by my side, and while Big Bertha and John bring up the rear, dragging along my drip. On the far side of the lobby, the hotel manager flings open the doors of the Alpenrose restaurant with an excess of theatrics, and we start our walk through the dining room, past the beautiful set tables, the cheese trolley, and the centerpiece vase filled with thorny berry branches. The dining room falls silent. Elderly Swiss couples and two children families, sitting before roast chickens and veal medallions in a wild mushroom sauce, lift their heads and stare at us. They look like cud-chewing cows, peering astonished at hikers crossing an alpine meadow. But we are used to this sort of thing after so many decades in Switzerland, and we sail right through the dining room like only our family exists in the world. The open French doors on the far side of the dining room reveal a grey slate terrace facing the glassy lake of Eggery, its water so clean and clear and pure, I have to catch my breath. "What a wonderful idea, Sammy," Lisa says, pulling off her silk scarf. "Thank you. We so needed to get out of the house and get a change of scenery." She gently touches my shoulder. "Isn't that so, Jose Maria?" I pat her hand. "Claro. See, it's perfect. Very nice." Sam moves on ahead through the French doors to make sure the terrace table he requested is ready, and I am wheeled out after him. The maitre d' is waiting for us. He pulls out the head chair facing the mountain and lake, and with a courteous dip of his head, signals for me to take the place of honor. A white-jacket waiter who has been at the restaurant since the boys were little warmly greets the family in Swiss German and pulls out a chair for Lisa. She sits down immediately up to my right. Sister Bertha, knowing her place, whispers to Lisa she will eat at the cafe down the street, but my wife says, "You will dine with the family, Sister Bertha. You have been so good to us and seen us all at our very worst. Whether you like it or not, that makes you part of the family. Please, I insist you join us." And so the nun blushes and moves to a spot at the end of the table. I stick to sparkling water while they all drink the wine, including Lisa, who is visibly relieved to have a few carefree hours. They talk about this and that, about the mountain in front of us at the end of the lake, and about the time the boys were skiing on its northern slope with the American International School of Zurich. Lisa went on the school trip too, as one of the parental chaperones. She recalls with humor now How the boys were caught by the school's history teacher trying to sneak out of the hostel's bathroom window for a nighttime rendezvous with the girls in the far dorm. I half listen. I am mesmerized by the view before us, the grey and jagged peak, its flanks looming mauve and purple over the blue-green lake, the villages dotting the shoreline like decorative trim around a cake. There is a cluster of boats. I recognize Eton's red and white hull, hovering before the Morgarten Strandbad, the public swimming beach, above a hole in the lake known to be a favourite feeding ground for the felchen, the local Swiss fish. But my tranquil reverie is interrupted by sudden gun blasts in the forest up and off to the left of the hotel. Half a minute later, we all hear thundering hooves as a magnificent 6-point stag plunges through the garden hedges to the right of the hotel. Alfredo jumps up, barks with deep excitement, and pulls hard at the lead that is, fortunately, secured tightly to the leg of Rob's chair. As it shoots past us, I get a strangely clear and close look at the stag, at the branch bones of furred antlers, at the great jets of steam and snot shooting from his flared nostrils, at the adrenaline-filled muscles rippling under the red hide, moving like waves washing over slabs. But then he is past the hotel and thundering down the lawn, sending up clods of turf. He heads straight for the lake, and for a moment we don't know what he's going to do, perhaps veer off at the last moment. But the mighty beast never hesitates, and in full gallop jumps off the hotel pier. There is a great splash as the magnificent animal disappears underwater. We all sit straighter and with anxiety, wondering if he will come back up again, and then erupt in cheers when he surfaces, head and antlers held high, eyes wide with terror, heading straight across the lake. "Go," I whisper. "Go!" A third of the way across, the deer starts to tire, and I begin to think he might not make it. But there is a peninsula jutting into the lake just past the town of Egg, and perhaps seeing this spit outstretched like a helping hand, the deer changes course and heads in its direction. I hold my breath until it finally, wearily, wades into the shallows and stands panting hard on the far shore. Steam rises from its hot and wet flanks. It regally turns its head back in our direction, snorts a few times, and then, his head still held high, he is up into the forest and gone. "My God, that was amazing," says Rob. I wish I had my film crew." I turn and see that everyone at the table is flushed and peering at the wooded peninsula where the stag has just disappeared. The old waiter comes out with glass bowls filled with salad and chives and whisker baskets filled with crusty brown bread. He has seen it all too. He places a salad bowl before Rob and me. "A pity that was my son hunting above. Would have been a nice set of antlers to go with above the garage door." "After a hunt like that, isn't the deer's meat gamey and filled with toxins?" John asks. "I remember once in upstate New York trying to cook deer that had been running like that before it was finally felled by a hunter. We couldn't eat the meat. We had to throw it away. It was awful. Muscles were so filled with adrenaline you could taste the animal's fear in the meat. I stewed the venison for hours with vinegar and mustard to get rid of the bitter taste, but even that didn't help." "That's true," said the old waiter. "It is not a good taste, but the antlers, a trophy." "Well, thank heavens it got away," Lisa says. "I would have gone off my food if they had shot it in front of us. Such a magnificent beast." But I have lost the trail of their chatter, for my watery eyes are peering at what is happening at the bottom of the hotel's field. A park bench and a stone bird bath stand next to a stream entering into the lake, a brook that marks the property's territory. My brother Juan is sitting on the bench, jiggling his leg and smoking a cigarette. I can see, even from the distance, he is talking with a great deal of passion. his hands flapping Spanish style this way and that. His discussion partner is quite the opposite in temperament. The frog queen sits coolly and regally next to him in the wet grass, gulping her eyes wide with intelligent curiosity. She's again somehow communicating telepathically, because there are moments when Juan turns his head in her direction, clearly listening to her counsel, before returning to his anxious cigarette puffs and the hand gestures and the rat-tat-tat of northern Spain. I know in my bones that I am the subject of their discussion, and they are quietly joining forces, plotting their next steps on precisely how they will get me to do their bidding. Darling, Lisa says, patting her hand on mine, are you all right? You look pale and far away. The hunters, they are hunting. Yes, Jose, they are. It's that time of season, fall. So that's it. I do hope you'll join us on April 23rd. My story is about a man coming to terms with his death. There is death all around us. And I hope that you will discuss with me what sometimes writing can do. That is, helps us work through the processes of life and death and somehow lifts us all up. Please come join me with this discussion at Sarah Lawrence College on April 23rd.